My name is Shannon Harvey, and I've been a working artist probably for 15 years or so. I have a studio space, 2 different spaces in the Strathcona neighborhood, and we are in one of them right now. The 2 people who sort of manage the building, they have worked for a video game company called Action Pants. It's recently changed names, but anyway, their company helped them get this space to use for the artists who work in the company. So it was a way for the employees to have a creative space outside of where they worked. So it's, yeah, I think it was quite unique in that way. I haven't really heard of that happening before. And then they were also able to rent out, you know, extra space that they had if they couldn't fill it with employees from where they work. I've been in this space for about a year, a little over a year, and I rent here. Lately I've been focused on doing screen printing, and specifically screen printing t-shirts. So I started a company called Monkey 100, and it was about bringing designs that I had created that had a message and screen printing them onto shirts. I buy the screens, they're already stretched and on the frames, and then there's a photo emulsion type of chemical that I coat the screens with, and then I burn the images onto the screen. Ventilation is fine actually, because the stuff that I'm using doesn't produce, you know, an odor. It's not toxic in that way. You know, I wear gloves, but in terms of controlling the light, because it almost has to be like a dark room, so that's why I had to put up quite a few you know, drapes to make sure I could block out the light while I'm coating the screen and while I'm exposing it. So how it works is you can do up to 4 colors on this, and if you have a screen in every one and you have the screens, you know, lined up, you can do a 4 different color print. So the screen basically goes in here. So the screen goes in there, and then you put the shirt on, and you bring this down and you print. So the space we're in now, I just use it for doing the screen printing. There are a number of different artists in this building. There's jewelry making, there's a few woodworkers. There's actually a gentleman here who makes guitars. There are illustrators, painters. There are some people who do character work, like for video games. So it's a real range. And the spaces that we share are sort of, there's a sink, there's a utility sink out there, and that's where I wash out my screens, but primarily I'm in this space. Okay. For most of the time that I've been working as an artist, I had a space that was fairly isolated, like I wasn't sharing a space with other artists. And there is a benefit, I think, to being in a space where there are other artists working. It does give you support in a way, even if you're not, you know, socializing all the time with them. It's just more the sense that, you know, these are people who are working creatively, and it gives you a sense of, yeah, this is this is good. This is a worthwhile thing to be doing, and it's valuable, and because sometimes, you know, it's easy to kind of doubt what it is you're doing, especially in a culture that doesn't really value what artists do necessarily. I mean, they may appreciate it, but there isn't the same value as there is for, say, you know, other things that we would spend money on. We've been in the process of not really just a renovation, but sort of a build of a place, a space in Strathcona, and it will be a living space and also a very large workspace. It's actually around 1,200 square feet. My husband is involved in real estate, and he develops projects. So this actually he took on as a project, and it was an old schoolhouse and also a church. At one time, I think in the 20s or 30s, and so we've retained the structure but made it into units. So it's going to have 5 units, and then it has a ground floor space in the front And part of the idea was that, I would have a space to work in, but that we also are seeing the space as a place that could be kind of open to the community at different times and maybe provide different types of resources. Maybe there are art workshops there, or maybe it could also be like a resource center for artists who, are wanting to know about different issues. Because I'm a board member with the Crawl, I've even thought about that idea, how could we kind of make a space that could kind of be like a resource center? Because there really aren't many spaces like that in the neighborhood, actually any that I can think of. I do think that artists have a responsibility to become educated advocates for themselves and for each other. And we have talked about this, the fact that and some of it has to do with artists. A lot of artists are just kind of struggling to make a living. They are just, right on the edge. So the argument is, well, they don't really have a lot of time in which to become more educated as, as advocates for themselves, and, really finding out what their rights are and how to push for that. But I still say that it is a responsibility to become more educated and more involved in what's going on, so that you can push for those changes, and you can advocate for yourself and as a group. Certainly forming co-ops, I think, is a great idea. Artists can only benefit from coming together, not from acting in a very isolated way. I mean, I think, if any group is going to have that kind of power as a unit, it's definitely artists coming together, because we feel isolated, a lot of us, as it is, and there's great benefit that can come from that coming together.